Hey there, I'm Tom Leonard. I'm the host of the Gamers Change Lives podcast. When it comes to esports, I am definitely not the expert. I'm more of an explorer. The goal of the podcast is to hear from esports entrepreneurs and others around the world to hear how esports can create jobs and maybe inspire some other people to do just that. Our tagline is play games, create jobs, change lives. In season 2, we're talking about sponsorship, investment, and more to show how to generate revenue for your esports business because it takes money to create jobs. We call this season Follow the Money. And I have the perfect guest here. I'm honored to have Christian Bishop here in the US. He's the director of Twitch Properties. He's also, before that, he was the chief revenue officer at Method, which I believe is in Scotland, the commissioner at eStars over in Las Vegas, and president of business development at Thunder Gaming. He knows monetization. Welcome, Christian.
Man, so glad to be here, Tom. Thanks a lot, my man. You're too kind, but I appreciate the nice words.
No, because literally, I mean, one of the things we want to talk about in season 2 is monetization. And you have such a great background from all kinds of different angles to talk about it. So that would be great for our audience. And you're just coming up on a year at Twitch. Is that right?
Yeah, yes, sir. Exactly.
But that must be great.
Yeah, it's been an interesting journey. You know, I started off in esports as an entrepreneur, launching my own businesses and kind of going through the grind, brick by brick, throughout my career so far in the space. And now to be on the Twitch side of things and the platform is an interesting additive because I've launched venues in esports arenas, production companies, tournament and leagues, and then I was on the team side. So now to be on the platform side is fun.
So what got you started in esports and in gaming?
Yeah, look, for me as a kid, video games was the thing for me to do. You know, I moved around a lot. My mom was a single mom, 4 kids, didn't always look like everybody else that was around and didn't fit in and always necessarily. And video games was it for me. And I loved it. So grew up playing them as a kid, launched, gaming clubs and was president of one throughout boarding school. And then in college, when I was working 2 jobs, I managed a GameStop. So for me, I thought that was it. Working at a GameStop as a young man you made it as a gamer. And then went to corporate America, went and jumped on, then I was in LA, and then went to the entertainment side of things in the industry with some TV shows with ABC and whatnot. And said, well, hey, look, if there's reality shows exist and all this other type of content, certainly we can bring back video games like G4. And that's where I decided to dive in and invested a lot of money, went through a lot of pain trying to create original programming and shows. And then, pivoted, man, and just then launched a venue.
How long ago were you creating shows? Because I think that's interesting on the time frame.
Probably about 7 years ago.
At the very beginning of the esports world. So
I don't know about that. Some of these guys like Ralph from ESL have been doing it way longer. The StarCraft guys and some of those OGs, Counter-Strike 1.6 and, Mike Sepso and Sundance, MLG days and Adam Apicella grinding before me. But, I've been fortunate to come on and trying to stand on their shoulders a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great because on one hand, there's not a big roadmap. It's not like, oh, we've always done it this way. But at the same time, there's a bit of history to learn from.
Absolutely.
First, I want to talk a little bit about in-person events and like TwitchCon, which is coming up here shortly in San Diego, just down the road from where I am here in Burbank. And a lot of people in our audience are entrepreneurs or they want to be entrepreneurs on creating their own in-person events. We had Eniola Idan, for example, from Gamer in Nigeria, who is just doing amazing things there. So can you tell us a little bit about in-person events? What kind of revenue streams are there if you're creating an in-person event?
So these in-person events can be different. When you mentioned TwitchCon, that is specifically created for our creators and our most passionate fans, right? So that show's different because you've got over 14,000 streamers and content creators at one show. So it's a massive media event in its own right. But it's to celebrate Twitch culture and to give an opportunity for creators to get together, to meet one another, to meet some fun brands that are creating great products and solutions to support them and have been supporting the space for a while as well, right? This is like a big celebration of Twitch culture, streaming culture, and gaming culture. And it's unique and different in that way, right? And for those type of shows, it's not necessarily about revenue. What we make goes back into launching new shows and new programs. We expanded and launched one in Amsterdam. We'll be in Paris next year. So that's what it's about for us. When you think of like other potential live events that could have an angle for monetization, like let's take the FGC and the Smash community, for example. They do a great job monetizing live events. Ticket sales is a big one for them, right? Where you've got people paying $50 to $200 for a 2 to 3 day event. A piece of that ticket sell goes to the prize pool for those tournaments. And that's a great thing, which is unique and rare in the FGC, that they have an ability to get thousands of people to show up and pay ticket prices at that range. And there's other esports that struggle, what I say, to get butts in seats, right? And they have to get creative, and they can't give the tickets away sometimes. So it's interesting. And if you have the strong community base, and that's the key to these things, is you've got to have the strong core community, then you can sell tickets. And then number two, of course, with tickets and entrance and having the foot traffic, then you can sell sponsorships, and you can monetize that through a meaningful program and strategy, both like in arena branding, right, banners and whatnot. But you should have a stream of some sort, and then what does your digital branding look like? For either competitive gameplay or whatever you're going to be doing. That's an interesting angle, right? If you can sell sponsorships, it's not easy. And you can sell booth space. If you have exhibitor booth space as well, that can be offered as a third option. Either goes in tandem with sponsorship or just alone, right? For like vendors that want to, offer something. You can have smaller exhibitor space, which is called like an artist alley. And that's more for community driven, and it's much more affordable, but that's a separate activation you can have. You can work out to get a portion of the food and beverage revenue, the F&B, depending on your venue that you choose from, and work with them. Now, that's not always possible to negotiate that, but you can try. And the same with hotel room bookings. So like when you have an event, you have a certain block that you negotiate. Now, generally, when you have a live event, you'll try to go do that deal with a property that has a hotel. Maybe they have a casino, then they'll be really interested and aggressive because they know what that means, right? They'll model, assume that some people will gamble, but they'll be like, look, we'll give you the space for free. We'll give you 15% of the F&B. We'll give you the exhibitor space, and give you some portion kickback on the rooms based on how many book. And they might need a commitment from you that like you'll sell this many rooms and this many people will come. And those are some of the kind of the high level opportunities that exist for events.
No, so you definitely have experience on doing this, because that covers a lot of bases that people can be thinking about. What do you think is the most important revenue driver? Do you think it's the ticket sales?
I think it's the people. I think it's getting humans to show up and care about your event and care about what you're doing. If you have passion and excitement around what you're launching and putting together, and the people participating in your program do, then that will come through in social media impressions and reach. That will come through in terms of PR coverage of your event, and relevance. Relevance is a very important superpower and magical recipe for a lot of the things that we do in our space. It could be content that you're creating. It could be an event that you're producing. It could be a tournament. It could be a team or a brand that you're launching. Relevance is going to lead to people caring and showing up and PR writing about it and brands wanting to sponsor it. Relevance. So I think that's really important. But one of my favorite things, look, Tom, if you can sell tickets, and have that core revenue as a core base to be able to build your event off the back of, then, that's the way things have always been done, right? That's the original way to do it. So I think it's a good place to start.
Do you think there's any opportunity for selling media rights to an event?
Not really, to be honest with you. Not initially. I think that if you're gonna, first off, who's paying for media rights? So you're not going to get any real linear revenue from a linear TV network. OTT platforms want revenue splits, like 50-50 revenue split, and they'll like, Tubi TV or, these apps will like want your content, but they're only going to give you a rev split. And it's like, who's going to go watch this on that app anyway? And then if you think you're going to get money from a digital platform, you know, Facebook gaming, Twitch, or YouTube, that's very rare, very, very rare. So your event and your programming better bring value in a real way to the community and play a critical part, like some of these award shows do, right? Game awards and esports awards, they're a part of our culture. They can find a way to get some deals. But if you have meaningful revenue, if you have meaningful viewership at your event, depending on what it is, right? Because is it competitive? And then if it's esports, it's a tournament. What game? How many eyeballs are we talking about? That could be a little bit different. And if you have eyeballs, then you can also monetize the audience directly through the stream with, look at Beyond the Summit. They do interesting things, selling like merchandise and all this other stuff that feeds into the prize pool. I think they call it like the compendium, kind of like how Dota does with TI. That opens up a whole nother angle. But if you have something that's watched, you can monetize the audience direct, and that should be your initial thoughts. And then if you're really big and you have a really strong IP and you're in a really important place and you have proven success over a period of time, then you can try to have a conversation with the platform for revenue.
What do you think about if you're creating an in-person event, the online portion of it? Because one of the things I like hearing you talk about is the PR side of things, because that's one of the things at the studios when we used to do things at Comic-Con. I mean, yeah, there's a pretty big audience at San Diego Comic-Con. The real bang for the buck was all the media that you would get out of being at Comic-Con. That was the big part. That was the big reason for being there. So one of the things is if you're just starting out, how much attention with an online event, with an in-person event, how much attention should you spend on creating an online component?
It's a good question. I think it depends, it depends. If it's a cosplay event, I might focus a bit more on the people that are in the arena that are celebrating costume, that are celebrating and like really can appreciate, the magnificent artwork being done with the costumes and whatnot. But it certainly wouldn't hurt to have a stream, right? People want to see that at home. But the more you bite off and the more you do is the more responsibility and the more budget and the more exposure you have for things not to go right. Because if you're going to have an online experience and you're going to have a stream, then what does that look like? And that puts pressure. You have to have a solid production crew. You have to have TDs. You have fly pack, production trucks. Is it digital with OBS and computers? What is the camera setup? What about audio? What about bandwidth, latency? To be able to broadcast and graphics packages and stream, and then you got to promote it, and it represents your brand. So rushing to go online with an online broadcast can also be a bit exposing to you unless you're ready for it, and you have a strategy to promote it accordingly, to do something. And that even on a rights point of view. And then once you go live, you have to have the rights too. So if you're trying to, stream and broadcast an esports tournament, then you're going to need a licensing agreement with the publisher, especially if you want to sell sponsorships. That opens up a whole nother can of worms now with the game publisher. And they might be more strict because they don't want you running an event when their esports program is going on. So we don't want you running a tournament of our game when our esports program is running, so then you get into that, man. So, and then there's major, landmines on the publisher side of things.
You sound like you're talking from experience there.
It's pain, talking through pain, Tom. And we're going to start drinking tequila here in a second if we keep talking about it.
That's always the best thing when E3 used to be the biggest thing here in LA every summer. The people that we wanted to make the best friends with were the people from Mexico, because the tequila sponsors always sponsored all their parties. So those were the best parties to get the invitation to.
The places to be.
When you're talking about sponsors and partners, because everyone in esports, I mean, how can I get sponsors? So if you're creating an in-person event and you want to go out and talk to sponsors, do you have any hints or any ideas on who to go to and how to nail them from the smaller organizations? Because at Twitch, you're in a different league. I mean, you call someone, they pick up the phone. sort of thing.
Tom, I came from the trenches. I
Yes,
came.
that's exactly why I'm asking
I
you
was,
that, because
I
you know
was
what it's like at that end.
I groveled. I was one of the what Sundance, bless him, from Vindex MLG days. What he told me a year or two ago, he was like, "Yeah, Christian, and I've seen you've been working hard, and you were that guy that was like, hey, Mister, do you have a minute?" And that's what I would do, like, "Hey, sir, can I get a moment with you?" And that's what I did, to start off in the very beginning years, as I was on the road traveling to every esports event that I could go to, right? And this is the business side of it, right? So these are like business events, consumer events, and I would look up who's going, and I'd be all over LinkedIn, and I would connect with as many people as possible on LinkedIn, and I worked really hard to farm LinkedIn. And then I'd see people post, and I would reach out to them and try to schedule meetings. And then I would see who's speaking at the panels, and I would connect with them on LinkedIn from the programming list, and I would message them, and then I would go to the panel. And then after the panel was done, I'd walk up and I'd wait in line and try to have a moment with that person and get their business card so that I can actually have a point of contact, because network is net worth, right? So that you have an ability. And I would do that. And I did that for years, a couple years, man, just going to all these events and connecting with everybody. And then after I go back to my hotel and I send a follow-up note and say, "Hey, so nice to meet you, so at whatever brand or game publisher or, Twitch or ESL." Just building my network and connections with people, and following up and being consistent. So that way, when the time comes, I can hopefully have some rapport to build off of. And that was just the grind of the trenches of doing that. And then digitally on Twitter and LinkedIn, and engaging and connecting with people with their posts and commenting. I call those touches, just getting touches with people, following up with them, so that when you do come with an ask, it's not a random out of known. They'll feel like they have some basic rapport to give your email 3 seconds instead of, the second it takes to delete. So that was the big, like, a thing for me, to be able to try to build a rapport, and then it's learn and understand what's important to the brands, and pay attention to what they care about. Look at what they're marketing, look at what they're doing, look at the brand managers, the people that do the sponsorships, figure out who it is, and look how they talk on Twitter. Look at what games they're passionate about and their interests, and look where those align, and try to find a way to connect. And it's hard, right? So it's very difficult to get sponsorship dollars out of different groups. A lot of people are going to want to give you product, especially if you're talking to endemics. Chair companies don't want to give money. Peripheral companies want to give barely any money. They'll give you keyboards, mice, headsets. Chairs, they're huge and bulky and expensive to ship. And then once you build it, you're not shipping it back. So chairs are like a problem too, to get, but like, you can get chairs, but they come over on shipping containers from China. And, if you want custom ones, they take months. But it's a process, man, and it's not easy. So, like, doing the intimate work to be meticulous with your strategic planning, building lists, Google Sheets of the companies you want to target, who's who, use the platforms like LinkedIn. You can use a platform called Sponsor United and get a subscription, which will give you the contact information, the names and the emails, and some of the phone numbers of people that are in the sponsorship teams. It'll also give you a database to actually list what all their sponsors are in esports, and it scrapes the web and it scrapes social, so you'll see it. And it gives you a lot of that interesting info. So come prepared, do your research, do the work to build relationships, build some rapport before you come with an ask, and then be humble. Don't come over the top with a extreme ask, thinking you'll go get 50K plus from a brand for a brand new event that just come out of the gates. Maybe ask for 10K, have a 10K, 25K, and a 50K option, and or maybe even smaller, and then think about what's in it for them.
You make it sound like a job, which is really good, because it is. I mean, people just think that it could be so easy. And also, one of the things I like hearing you talk about is the time frame, because so many people, it's like, we're going to have an event next month, let's go get some sponsors. Well, it's like the time to get sponsors is when you don't need sponsors, which is what I hear you saying.
Oh yeah, exactly. It kind of goes back to what I mentioned to you earlier before, relevance. That's the key when you talk about monetizing in this industry. It needs relevance. Relevance converts to eyeballs. It converts to people caring about what you're doing. It converts to people showing up. It converts to influencers who want to get involved in what you're doing, and players, which feeds the whole machine. and relevance and how to go about getting that is a whole nother conversation, and magical in its own right, and it's kind of like making a hit song or a hit movie, right? Or writing hit literature. It's special, and it's tough to just replicate and do. Can't necessarily copycat. So there's something special about it, which makes it really hard. And that's why these legacy IPs like Evo and like E3 and some of these big events that have been around so much have so much value and lasting power, because they have that magic. And other ones can come up and try to copy it and flounder. But yeah, man, it takes time. Like a month is not going to happen. Like you'd have to have a personal relationship of a friend that's blessing you to agree to sponsoring something for $5,000-$10,000 small, or maybe they like charge it to their company credit card because they can, and like, yeah, they sponsor you that way, or they'll sign the contract. And that's a whole other thing, is then you got to go collect, and it's going to take time to get money from these companies. So hopefully you can cash flow and pay your bills, because that money, it's not coming right away.
Yeah. I remember at studios the 120-day payment policy was real. I mean, it just was baked in there, and it's like, well, nothing we can do. The thing I hear you talking about, which I think is really interesting, is you're talking about brand managers. And what I hear you saying is find out who the person is. Don't just do some research. I mean, do some research. You mentioned some options there, but find out who the brand manager is, because they're the one that is going to be making the decisions. It's their budget sort of thing. You want to be their best friend. You don't want to be the president's best friend or the CEO's best friend, or, I mean, that's not a bad thing, but there are other people involved that make a lot of sense. The other thing I was going to ask about here, because you keep bringing up what the brand wants out of it. What do you think most sponsors for in-person events, what is it that they're looking for? Reach?
Sponsors. And then you even like brought up like how do you get media money, right? Or media rights. Sometimes, and this is actually true, and I really do believe this, sometimes they simply want to support it because they think what you're doing is cool and that it's adding value to the community, or that you're serving a underserved community, women, people of color, diversity, like collegiate, high school. Sometimes people just want to support it because of that, and it's as simple as that. And they want to help you. And that's cool, and like, so you can get support there if you're in that niche. And that's actually a smart strategic angle, by the way, is that some companies have to earmark budget and money to spend in certain categories. And that when you're in a category serving an underserved community, you have a unique factor where it's less about your hypeness and relevance, and it's more about being the right thing to do and supporting a particular scene. And that is very powerful. And that's another wraparound angle that you can do it. And the same kind of applies also geographically. That's one of the things that I learned when you talk about monetization. And this is a major key alert, Tom. Sound the horns on the podcast.
Yeah, we need the little ka-ching sound.
You need something like that. But this is a big one, man. But one of the things that I learned throughout the years of grinding, and it took me years to come across this, is that I'm in the United States hustling, and I'm competing with everybody else in the US. It's one of the most mature markets with the biggest companies that are also going to those brands. Are we going to give you money when we got 10 other decks? And then I started to realize these other markets, and I had like friends that were in like Brazil that were like first, but they're the only ones. And then all of a sudden, like, it was like they were the only ones. And these companies are like, want to expand into Brazil. They want to be in the market, and they were getting deals. Publishers were writing them checks because they want to be in that market to target that demo and those users. And then same in like Ukraine, in Kyiv. Starladder's based out of that, and they did great, and also more affordable staff so they could run tournaments and production. So they were winning projects. Same in Germany with Freaks for You. They run, Riot's European League of Legends, and they did European stuff for Twitch Rivals. And I started realizing like international markets, like One Championship, they do esports stuff. They're in Southeast Asia. you can also have a geographic regional advantage to be unique. And then that's your angle where it's, hey, brand, hey, partner, hey, game publisher, we can help you access this audience. How else are you going to access them? And that is also powerful. So I think if you could find some unique ways to differentiate yourself, either for the communities you're serving, the regions, the geographical kind of footprint, and otherwise, if you're in the States, man, God bless you, because you're going to need to, you're going to need a bit of that magic to find an angle and actually build something of relevance that the community that you're serving loves and get big.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things about our audience here for the podcast was it's pretty much international, all over the world. And we've been talking to a lot of people in Africa, in India, South America, Southeast Asia. We talked to Mitch Esquera from Galaxy Racer. And it's like, wow, we had no idea. I had no idea how big Galaxy Racer is in the world. And
that's the chair company with the bigger furniture brand above them?
No, it's a different one. Galaxy Racer is just huge in Southeast Asia, but more in Middle East, North Africa, in the Middle East.
Is it a team?
It's a company. It's a content company.
Oh, I see these guys. Yeah, I got 320,000 subs on YouTube. Oh, yes. How cool. Yeah, they're booming, and their creators are massive. 4 million, 6. See, I had no idea. Look at these, they're huge. They're enormous. They have the relevance. They have the special sauce. They're serving a unique community, a different type of community. I mean, they're...
One of the really interesting things when you start looking at them, and we were talking to Mitch, it's like they're moving at warp speed. I mean, they started literally 18 months ago. And now they're the size that they are because of what they're doing. And I'm a real believer that there's just so much potential in a lot of places that people don't know about esports. It's like you're talking about Brazil being the only one there. I think there's a lot of money, a lot of sponsorship money to be sought out in places in Africa, for example, in India. But people who have the money to spend, they don't know esports, or they don't know any place to put their money in esports that's safe, that's something that they will feel comfortable with. So that's one of the things that we're trying to do here is try spread the word about. Now we spread the word about Galaxy Racer right here.
Yeah. So. Yeah, look, that's a big part of it. I think if you're able to help connect the dots and bring awareness to some of these situations, Galaxy reminds me of Loud. Have you ever heard of Loud?
No.
Check them out. Loud in Brazil. Go ahead, look them up. Go look up Loud. Go on. Are you on Twitter, Tom?
Yes.
So type in Loud. Let's see the user handle. Loud GG. Wait, is this the right one? Yeah, Loud GG.
Get in the right spot here.
Look at their Twitter.
Let's see here. I'm better on the phone. Let's see. I am looking here.
Do you see that? How many followers they have?
People, let's see here.
I'm gonna link it to you as well. Do we have a chat in here? Oh yeah, we do have a chat.
Yes, we do.
Right. I just linked it for you too.
Okay. Wow.
How many? And it gets crazier.
1.5 million.
They have 1.5 million followers. You didn't even know about them. And look at their top tweet. When was it tweeted? Their top tweet.
The one that shows up first is 3 hours ago.
And how many likes does it have? How many likes does it have, Tom?
110,000.
Are you kidding me? Look how insane that is. These organizations like this and the one you mentioned to me exist in these different communities or regions that a lot of other people don't know about, especially like us in the West. Now, in Loud was like arguably number one on Twitter in terms of social impressions globally for Twitter gaming across esports orgs, is that the community is just so passionate. You watch football games and soccer games, right? You see, Brazilian fans that don't play, but these other communities, man, and when you've got like governments, and you've seen like the Middle
Yes.
East
Yes.
is moving a lot to invest and
Saudi
provide
Arabia.
yeah, you've seen a lot that's being done, and then strategically these like the sovereign wealth fund investing and taking positions in these companies, buying ESL, buying
Yes.
Faceit, the operators, investing in these other game businesses where they own 10-15%. That's is going to be a big deal for those regions, because it tells you now that certainly when it comes, because one of the problems with these regions, Tom, is that they actually don't have the infrastructure for the games. They lack the servers to be able to have competitive gameplay, and the latency and ping is too high. Those days are changing. They own a piece now. The big players, now they'll start seeing those servers rolled out, and with the investments that is going into these scenes,
Yes.
it's
Yeah. One of my favorite stories that I repeat probably too often is when Anubis in Egypt went to the Red Bull Campus Clutch in Portugal or in Spain. They were not used to the ping rate that they had at the event, and because they trained at home, they had. They were good for all kinds of reasons, but it certainly did not hurt that they had trained in with a much lower ping rate. We talk to people all the time in sub-Saharan Africa. We're talking to people in Zambia, and if you're going to be a fighting game professional player and you're in Zambia, good luck, because your ping rate is going to be so bad that it's going to make it really tough.
It's horrible. It's horrible for fighting games.
I wanted to ask a little bit. We could keep going forever, and I want to be respectful of your time here. I want to talk a little bit about online events, and in particular, you guys do Twitch Rivals, which is a huge online type of program. And could you talk a little bit more about what Twitch Rivals is and what you're trying to do there?
Yeah, so Twitch Rivals is a competitive entertainment product for creators, right? It's not necessarily about the top tier esports pros that are competing, and then you see esports competitions. It's an entertainment product first for creators to have an opportunity to come have fun, meet other creators that they want to play with around a game that they're excited about, and just do something different and unique, that in a little bit of a different format than they normally do. And then for us, we hope to be able to introduce creators to and provide a place where some of the audience can meet other creators. So many people only watch like certain folks, but then when you watch the Rivals program, you'll maybe get a chance to get to know another creator, see their personality, and get introduced to that channel, so we can help our creators grow and get some visibility.
When you're talking about creators at Twitch or in general, what are the kinds of revenue streams that a streamer? Because again, we're going back to follow the money here. It's like, if you're a streamer, what are the options for earning money online if you're a streamer?
Oh yeah, look, as a content creator and a streamer, it starts with the content. The you can monetize directly, right? That's what's great about Twitch, is you have subscription revenue, right? So people subscribe to your channel, and there's 3 different tiers: tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. The most affordable being $5. The base partnership, when you're a partner, is a 50-50 revenue split for partners there. When you are affiliate so it's normal streamer, they just get started, then they get an affiliate status, then you get partner status. Once you have affiliate, it unlocks the ability to get subscriptions and whatnot. And then you can start monetizing. And that's, streaming, really the bar is not that high, right? It's like average of 3 concurrent viewers, a certain number of stream days. You can get to that point to be able to monetize a stream rather quickly. Partner is a bigger jump. That's like a 75 average. And you have to show some other metrics that are important to the content team. But you get to monetize the audience directly. If people that want to support your content and channel with subscriptions, I view it as a little TV, cable subscription like back in the day. They can donate bits. They can donate to you. And those are like bits for special moments, which let a viewer get a moment where it pops up on your stream and you get to read their message because it's highlighted or it's read out. That's always interesting as well. And then, of course, again, as you gain viewership and relevance, you can do sponsorship deals yourself. Some of these creators also sign to teams, where then they have a team that's writing them a check, and the team is helping them get sponsors. They've got merchandise. And that's the really interesting one is like, I'm a very, very big believer, Tom. And I think what everybody needs to do is everybody needs to stop thinking from a third party point of view is how do we get money from a sponsor? How do we get money from Twitch or YouTube or a brand? The goal is how do you get money directly from the audience, direct to consumer strategy? How do you build products that are going to monetize directly to the community? That is the key. If you can cut out the middleman and monetize an audience directly, maybe, the obvious one is like merchandise. And I'm not most excited and bullish about merchandise, but that's like an obvious one. Then okay. But there's other people that have websites. Like I've purchased and sold websites, and I've made investments myself, bought a website, found an individual, hobbyist that was passionate about a website, and it gets great views. Millions of people go to the site, or at least millions of page views, but millions of page views a month. And that could be, 250,000 people uniques, like kind of revisiting it. And they don't have ads. They don't run anything. They're just like, oh, I do it for fun. I could go buy their site for $50,000 or whatever to negotiate, turn on ad revenue, and based on the traffic, monetize that site and have it pay it cash flowing within 6 months and got an ROI simply because of that. So like build products like that, like websites, gaming websites, if you're a creator that then is providing utility to the community that you're creating content in. A Minecraft server, for example. Have your own Minecraft server that then you can monetize, that you promote on stream. Like these are just all little random ideas, but that's what I mean when I say monetize the community directly, is if you're able to do that, cut out the middleman, you're not begging for anybody to write you a check, which is very difficult to justify your business. Create something of value, then the community will recognize it and will tell you if it's good or not. And then they should be willing and be able to pay you a fraction of something for your services.
How should a content creator promote their content?
That's an interesting question, because we just unlocked the ability for creators now to be able to go live and whatnot on other platforms like TikTok and post content. So we believe that there is an opportunity for them to build new audiences and create relationships with other users that may not be on our platform on Twitch, but are on those other platforms like TikTok. And as you know, there's amazing discoverability on TikTok. To me, I tell creators and people like, hey, even if you're a new creator, you should be on TikTok. In fact, are you on TikTok, Tom?
Barely.
Well, this podcast has got to be on TikTok in some capacity somewhere, even if it wasn't purely audio. Maybe it was like transcribed and it was like, I don't know, but like there's got to be angles. But TikTok is awesome from a discoverability point of view to get growth, and then you can
Great
push.
to know.
Yeah, and then you can push people. But also, it's also the other platforms. Try the new things that they're promoting. So you'll notice that platforms tend to, with their algorithms, tend to promote and push the content that is important to them, like IG Reels and YouTube Shorts. So whenever something new comes out from a platform, be first to jump on it. Be creative. Reddit. Use Reddit. Go communicate and go participate. Don't just spam and drop your links, but participate in your Reddit threads in the groups of the communities in which you're in. I started streaming when the pandemic happened because I wanted to learn what it was like to be a streamer, because when I was working at the Esports team Method, I saw how much money they made. And I was doing deals, and game companies were paying these creators thousands of dollars an hour to play their game. And I'm like, we're talking like 5, 10, 15, 25, 50K an hour, Tom, to play a game. Where they say, hey, will you, so-and-so creator, they obviously have big viewership, tens of thousands of CCV concurrents. And I was like, are you kidding me? This guy is getting $50,000 to play this game for 2 hours. And in some cases, I had to twist their arms. And I was blown away by that. And I was like, I'm going to try it. I'm going to try streaming. So I started streaming, and I joined Facebook groups that were about streamers. And I started hanging out in other streamers' channels and they would hang out in my channel, and I would support them and they would support mine, and I was able to get viewers, and we would keep each other's tabs open on the internet. I got 3 monitors and I keep them open, and they'd give me a viewer and they'd hang out and we'd jump in and they support me, and I'd communicate in Reddit. And I started doing all that kind of stuff and built, and in less than 9 months, I was able to make $50,000 streaming, building an audience, and just over time, and doing like game campaigns myself, and just able to do that kind of stuff. And I was like, okay, I see how it's done. It's hard work, but I could see.
Yeah, because everyone thinks, oh, you're playing games. How hard can this be? And it's like, no. It's a business.
I was drained. At the end of streaming, I'd be tired. It was not recharging for me, like it is for some people, and that's why I stopped. Like I was like, "Woo, how was work?"
Yes. So, do you see things changing from a streaming standpoint? Are there new things coming down the pike that you're aware of that might change things, or are we kind of looking at the same thing that we're doing now?
Look at Tom, guys. Tom is starting to pry now. He's trying to get into the vault, the inner secrets.
And I'm not talking about what you do for
he's prying. He's looking at him. He's going deeper into the vault.
But if you want, but we're willing to record anything you're willing to say.
Yes, sir. Mr. Leonard, sir. So I think the interesting thing that is circulating now is sports. So you have traditional sports broadcasters and rights holders now that are giving the rights for creators to restream sports games. And that is powerful. And I think that is going to be a very big deal, right? Whereas, do you watch American football by any chance, Tom?
A little bit. Not a lot.
So Peyton Manning, there was this broadcast of Peyton Manning with his brother Eli sitting on a couch, and they were watching a game, and that you could watch that channel and hear him and his brother hanging out, watching the game. What is interesting is that it's about the audience wanting to sometimes have a different personality and talent narrate what's going on in the sports competition too. It's the same kind of train of thought with a gamer. Is maybe somebody from an audience would be interested in their favorite streamer who also loves soccer, football, to be the commentator, for a big football match in Brazil, right? Or a big basketball game. And that is the next evolution, right? Or golf, and it's like all of a sudden you have somebody that you love, and it's this, it's a creator that's 22 years old, and some 12-year-old kid can't relate to like NBC's Golf Channel and those broadcasters, but now you put that 22-year-old streamer and they're having fun and they're like joking, and now that's a new audience. In places like golf and baseball, and like their audiences are very old. Now you've unlocked this access to the coveted youth, and you're exposing your sport to these other people. So I think you'll start to see that, and that's interesting to see how sports rights develop in a streaming point of view. Especially internationally. So you talk about places like Africa and things like that. In the US, it's really tough because the rights are such a big deal. But in other markets, internationally, that's the NBA does it. The NBA does it with a streamer called Gaules. They do a partnership with him where Gaules streams NBA basketball games in South America. So, and he actually, I'm going to drop a link here for you so that you can see it. And this one here. Funny enough, this was my website that I sold, esports.gg. This was my media company that I launched. And this one here actually covers it. It's Gaules doing NBA matches on Twitch, and he had a Budweiser sponsorship. And it's South America, NBA was down, and You'll see at the bottom, NBA testing waters with Gaules partnership. And for him, he expanded the NBA into the Brazilian market. And for NBA, they're not going to have problems from ESPN and everybody else that they sell rights to.
No, that's really interesting because the traditional sports world has such a long history. I mean, and people are so passionate about it. And so if you can tap into that you're talking about, resonance and relevance, and it's like, that's what you're able to tap into. And there's probably also, even from entertainment brand IP, it's like, from, all the DC, all the Marvel people out there, it's like how they can utilize it to tap into other markets. How much can streamers earn, do you think? If you were talking to someone, now it sounds like you're doing really, really well at streaming there after 9 months. Most people starting out, what kind of range would you say to expect to not get disappointed or not get out of control?
It depends. So it depends if you're going to turn the camera on and do nothing and expect growth. It's going to be very difficult to impossible. It's going to be you and your mom and your cell phone, because you're watching yourself on your phone as your viewers. It's going to be very, very hard. You need to grind and you need to hustle. If you rely just on the streaming platform's revenue, it can be a little tough initially as well for real meaningful money. I made that money also through paid promotions. I knew how to go get those deals, right? So I was able to get them for myself at the same time. So my situation was a little bit unique and different. But I think that you can get to the point where you're making, $500 to $1,000 a month. If you find if you can have 100 to 200 viewers, you should be able to make $500 to $1,000 a month through monetization. If you're streaming consistently, I'd probably say 25 plus hours a week. If you find a creative way to do that. And obviously that also takes support from your community, being able to support and subscribe. And there's other fun ways where you can get your community to participate in supporting your career. There's things like Patreon and whatnot, right? Where they can become membership and you can have different levels and you can get creative and say, okay, guys, for all my tier 3 Patreons, we're going to have game night and we're going to play games together. And you are now part of it, where it's and then for tier 2s, we're going to have a private Discord chat on Saturdays where it's just us and you can ask me anything. That's what I mean. You kind of got to get creative and hustle and find new ways to have new offerings. But it's also going to take getting that initial viewership and, making sure that you're cultivating a community.
Yeah. It's especially, what we keep hearing from you is it takes work to do this. But the other thing that I'm always a big believer in is look and see what other people are doing. Never feel like you have to reinvent the wheel. I mean, if you can be out there and see other people that are doing something similar or being, having success in a particular thing, it's go out, follow that. I did want to ask one question about Twitch, and I'm not trying to pry for inside information. Is Twitch going to be doing more internationally? Because we talk a lot with people in Africa and India and other places, and Twitch isn't necessarily their first platform that they go to. Do you think Twitch will be expanding more in emerging markets?
I think so. Yeah, absolutely. I think Twitch will continue to. I think that there's always some nuanced details about Twitch's ability to be able to do it too. When you talk about some of these other regions and countries, to make sure that they can actually support both infrastructurally for the creators and streamers from an IT point of view, right? The tech and the bandwidth that's required to run a streaming platform and live is significant. It is significant. It is a massive loss for most companies to be able to actually manage running a streaming network and platform. Hence the deal with Amazon, right? Gave a lot of that infrastructure to AWS, but otherwise it'd be very hard for a company without having that type of support. But also regionally, right? What does that relationship look like in that region? There could be some components and sensitivities there, but Twitch is certainly doing it. There's been massive movements and expansions and investments in regions all around the world, honestly. But it's a bit of there's so many groups as you can imagine to serve while also serving your core, right? So that's the thing. So it's, I give the question back to you, Tom. If you're the CEO of Twitch, what do? You've got 150 million people coming to your site every month. How are you going to juggle the balance of your responsibilities to service the 150 million people you have, as well as all the creators and everything else that comes with that, and all the nuance, music licensing rights and people restreaming shows to do watch parties and all the things that we deal with, how do you balance your time, Mr. Leonard? How would you do it?
No, I am not an expert on that. And I certainly understand your point. That's one of the things about Twitch, and we don't talk to a lot of people at your level on the podcast, but Twitch is just such a big animal out there. And but with, what's the old saying, with a lot of power comes a lot of responsibility. You got to take care of what it is that's been built on in the past. So when you're talking about, one of the things I hear you also keep coming up with is community. And one of the things that we've learned more than anything else in talking all around the world is it's the community that is the most important part. If you're going to build any kind of a business at any kind of level, you're going to need that community. We got one last question here that we ask everyone. Should the Olympics include esports? Why or why not?
Yeah, super interesting question. And just to recap to go off of that, shout out to the Spider-Man quote, by the way. Great power comes great responsibility.
Yeah.
Twitch is we have our communities to serve, but we also take pride in expanding and supporting other types of communities and being welcoming, right, to all type of groups and people from all around, right? And we're continuing to do that. That's why you see like musicians coming in and all these different categories, right? So it's just, we love it, and certainly internationally want to do more as well. So I think you'll continue to see more from Twitch in that regard. To the last comment about the Olympics, it's interesting. You know, it's always a debate. You'll say like, who needs who? Does the Olympics need us, or do we need the Olympics? I'd like to see it. You know, I was working on a deal with Intel to get them to do it, and Intel's a big sponsor of the Olympics, and they do a lot there. And I was like, we should do it. There should be a world, you know, Olympic styled event that Intel makes happen. You know, I see Intel, what they do with ESL. Intel is the type of company that has a lot of it has been a core part of esports and video games and all of us, you know, building our computers and stuff. It's been them and AMD going at it, but Intel, to me, seemed to be a great partner to make something like that happen. But, you know, it's interesting. You know, I would like to see it happen. It would be nice to see. Am I going to lose sleep over it? No.
I think one of the things when we're talking about creating jobs all over the world, it's like one thing about the Olympics is so many times you think of the Olympics as 2-3 weeks in every summer, every few years. What you don't really always realize is everything that led up to that. And the other thing, certainly here in the U.S., I mean, we have such a skewed vision of what's presented to us for all kinds of reasons on the Olympics. What you don't realize is all the countries that are working toward that same goal, and all the activities that took place over years to get people, you know, qualified to do that. And there just would be a lot of opportunity to create a lot of events that maybe wouldn't have been created otherwise.
That's an interesting point. And that's the exciting thing about, I think, our industry and community is that we are growing and it's scaling. And in that, like, you know, like my children are going to have some exposure to video games and interest. Whereas back in the day, like I'd go talk to CMOs of brands, be like, "What? People want to watch other people play video games?" And it'd be all like confusing, and there'd be like this breakdown. Now it's a little bit different. Now the people know they need to have gaming and esports strategies, and they didn't necessarily play games. But what's going to happen now is people and that are, you know, in their 30s and 40s, around my age, are now moving into those positions of power, which are going to be the ones that are controlling budgets, where it's not going to be to have to convince people necessarily to get into gaming and esports. They grew up on it and they'll want to, just like how I want to, just like how like a lot of sponsorships and a lot of money gets spent supporting legacy sports because it's a critical part of them, right? And it just is like they grew up watching it, and like they're just going to put money into tennis and put money into F1 and NASCAR and these things because that's just what they're going to do. Partially because they also have a passion for it. So you're going to see that. And that's exciting to think about, is the turning of the guard, where now generations are, as we all get older and generations move on, teenagers are going to enter the workforce. And then 30s, 40s are entering into executive roles, being decision makers. And that's going to continue to happen as time goes on, you know, 30, 40, 50, 100 years. And it's going to shape the world and shape how money is spent and priorities and how people view things, which could lead to the type of widespread infrastructure and resources and work being put in that you kind of reference has clearly been done at an Olympics level broadly, globally, from all of these countries to make the Olympics what it is, right? It's not just one, but it's everybody who participates trains and years and has organizations back home to cultivate exceptional athletes to compete in it's like a whole thing, right? So you just don't jump straight to the Olympics. There's a bit of a path, and I think that's what's fun about everything going on in our spaces, you see that infrastructure being continuing to be built and invested in. And not everything's perfect, but I think we're on the way up.
I think so too. And I think it's the amazing thing is to think of how many people there are in the world that have never known the world without a smartphone and without the internet. And when we're talking about Africa, the incredible young age of the African continent. And it's like people there just don't know, don't remember what it was like without this, which is just going to change their mindset, just like you're describing.
Yeah, like look about that. That was big for video games and esports was the development of bandwidth and fiber technology the past 10, 15 years, early 2000s and stuff. It was like you had AOL discs and you had to like time in and you had to like, and you would like dial in, you'd have time, with CDs that were being sent. And then things progressed and then cable, coax, and now you can have a gig circuit up and down at your home. So like, that's also the thing when I mentioned infrastructurally is important, right? When you think about like Twitch and like what you're doing in these markets, it's also infrastructurally what's happening in those markets to support, the developments of people that have bandwidth and that there's the things that are needed. So you hope to see that. And I spend time out in Kenya and Nairobi, and I sponsor and contribute to an orphanage out there. And the kids, like gaming and esports is way past being a luxury for some of these families, like running water and clean water and access to medicine and food and things for these poor kids, bless them, is much more important. And I hope that those things can be addressed first, right? And then hopefully those things can be addressed, things like gaming and smartphones and access to the internet, the web, which then gives access to education globally and cultures around the world, and it can hopefully do for them what it did for me, what gaming did, right? Which helped me feel connected and supported when I didn't as a kid. So I'd hope we'd see that. And I think smartphones and cell phone technology, you look at what it's done in India, right? Like in the mobile market in India, games like PUBG and whatnot are big because access to bandwidth and technology is like everybody's got phones, right? And those are accessible and they became affordable in India from Chinese manufacturers that went to that market where computers and hybrid gaming PCs and stuff weren't. So I think smartphones as well will continue to be a big part of, gaming and competitive gaming, esports spreading to some of these other countries and things throughout Africa and whatnot without the big infrastructure lifts.
Yes. I mean, in so many places, it's mobile first when it comes to esports, just because of the infrastructure that they have. Hey, this has been a great discussion. We could keep going on and on. I don't want to take all day here of your time. So I really appreciate you spending a little time here talking about monetization, because we could just keep talking about your ideas on how to raise money. The one thing that I will say that in hearing you speak, that you kind of live the model of you got to work hard, you got to hustle, you got to get out there and do things. You sit back and wait for things to land on you, you're probably going to be sorely disappointed. So I just really appreciate you taking some time here.
Tom, look, I enjoyed the conversation, man. I forgot that we were being recorded because you're so cool to talk to, and it's nice to kind of catch up with you today, man. Look, I'm big on it. Man, of working hard and fighting for everything that you get, and just going tooth and nail. Nothing's promised, and it's all earned, and you got to go after it and get it, and find a way to add value, build relationships in a real way, work hard on improving and getting better every day. That's what I try to do, man.
Great. Hey, again, I appreciate it. Thanks to the audience for listening. This is the Gamers Change Lives podcast, season 2. Follow the money. Play games, create jobs, change lives. Talk to you next time.